I met Vanessa before she became the kind of woman people stood up for when she entered a room. Back then, she was just Vanessa Reed. 26 years old, sharp eyes, quick smile, always carrying a folder under her arm like she was late for something important. I was 28, working as an operations assistant at a logistics company, making just enough money to pay rent, help my mother when I could, and pretend I had my life more together than I actually did. We met at a coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday morning. I remember that because I hated Tuesdays. Mondays had an excuse for being hard. Wednesdays felt like the week was halfway over. But Tuesdays were just there, sitting in the middle of everything, with no mercy. That morning, the line was long, the place smelled like burnt espresso, and everyone looked annoyed. Vanessa was 2 people ahead of me. She was wearing a beige coat, black heels, and her hair pulled back in a neat bun. She looked professional, but not cold. Focused, but not arrogant. When she reached the counter, she ordered a black coffee and searched her purse for her wallet. Then she froze. I saw it on her face before she said anything. "Are you kidding me?" she whispered. The cashier waited. Vanessa checked her coat pockets, then her folder, then her purse again. I don't know why I stepped forward. Maybe because I had been embarrassed like that before. Maybe because something about her made me want to help without making her feel small. "I got it," I said. She turned around quickly. No, you don't have to do that." "It's coffee," I said. "Not a mortgage." She smiled at that. Not a big smile. Just enough to change my morning. "Thank you," she said. "I'll pay you back." "I'll be here tomorrow," I said. She lifted an eyebrow. That confident? Not confident, just addicted to bad coffee. That was the first time she laughed around me. The next morning, she was there before I arrived. She had 2 coffees on the table. One black, one with cream and sugar. She guessed wrong. I drank mine black too, but I took it anyway. We talked for 17 minutes before both of us realized we were late. That became our thing. Coffee before work. Sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes 30, sometimes only a wave through the window when one of us was running behind. At first, I thought she was just ambitious. Then I realized ambition was too small a word for her. Vanessa had a plan for everything. She had a 5-year career plan, a savings plan, a plan for the kind of house she wanted, a plan for what kind of woman she wanted to become. I used to tease her about it. "You have a plan for breathing too?" I asked one morning. She stirred her coffee and said, "Yes, inhale when people doubt me, exhale when I prove them wrong." That was Vanessa, and I loved that about her. She was not born into money. Her father had been a mechanic. Her mother worked at a school cafeteria. Vanessa was the first person in her family to graduate college. She didn't waste time because she felt like time had already been taken from her. I admired her before I loved her. That came slowly. It came in the way she listened when I talked about my mother's health problems. It came in the way she remembered small things. It came in the way she challenged me, without making me feel weak. She was the first woman who ever looked at my ordinary life and didn't treat it like something I needed to apologize for. "You're steady," she told me once. We were walking through a small park near my apartment. It had rained earlier and the ground was still wet. "Is that supposed to be romantic?" I asked. She looked at me. "It is to me." I didn't understand what she meant then. Later, I did. Vanessa grew up around people who promised things and disappeared. People who dreamed loudly, but never built anything. People who loved with words, but not with consistency. To her, steady meant safe. I became that for her. When she worked late, I brought dinner. When she had interviews, I helped her rehearse answers. When she doubted herself, which was rare but real, I reminded her of every mountain she had already climbed. When her first big promotion came, we celebrated in my apartment with cheap pasta, grocery store cake, and a bottle of wine that cost $12. She cried that night. Not loudly, just quietly, while sitting on the edge of my couch with her shoes off. "I always thought I'd have to do everything alone," she said. I sat beside her. "Not anymore." She leaned her head on my shoulder. That was the moment I knew I wanted to marry her. I didn't propose right away. I waited 8 months. Not because I was unsure, because I wanted to give her something worthy of her. I saved what I could, picked up extra shifts, sold my old motorcycle, stopped eating out, pretended I wasn't tired. The ring wasn't huge, but it was real. I proposed outside the same coffee shop where we met. She stared at me for so long I thought I had made a mistake. Then she said, "You really want all of this?" I laughed because I thought she meant marriage. Later, I realized she meant her ambition, her pressure, her long nights, her hunger for more, her fear of failing. I took her hand and said, "I want you." She said yes. Our wedding was small. Family, close friends, a rented hall, white flowers, and music from a speaker. My cousin almost broke halfway through the reception. Vanessa looked beautiful. Not because of the dress, even though the dress was perfect. She looked beautiful because for once, she wasn't rushing toward the next goal. She was just there, with me. For the first few years, our marriage was simple. Not easy. Simple. We had bills. We had arguments. We had months where money was tight, and both of us pretended not to notice how thin the fridge looked. But we were together. That mattered more than anything. Vanessa kept climbing. Manager, senior manager, director, vice president. Every title came with more money, more pressure, more travel, and fewer quiet evenings at home. I was proud of her. I need that to be clear. I was never jealous of Vanessa's success. When people called her brilliant, I agreed. When people said she was going places, I believed it. When she walked into rooms full of men who underestimated her, I wanted to stand in the corner and watch her prove every one of them wrong. And she did. Again and again. But success changes the shape of a marriage if you don't pay attention. At first, the changes were small. Dinner got pushed back, then cancelled, then replaced with a text. "Sorry, meeting ran late." Then came the business trips. Chicago, Dallas, Atlanta, New York. Sometimes she would call from hotel rooms with city lights behind her and exhaustion in her voice. "I miss you," she would say. "I miss you too," I would answer. And I meant it. But missing someone while still trusting them is different from missing someone while feeling them slip away. At first, I didn't feel that. I told myself she was tired. I told myself she was under pressure. I told myself this was what success looked like. When she became CEO of Meridian Global Solutions, everything changed faster. Meridian wasn't a small company. It had glass offices, international clients, private boardrooms, investors who spoke in numbers that sounded unreal to me. The night the board voted her in, Vanessa came home after midnight. I had decorated the kitchen with balloons. Nothing expensive, just gold and white balloons, a cake, and a handwritten card. She walked in, saw everything, and stopped. For a second, the old Vanessa came back. The woman from the coffee shop. The woman who cried over cheap pasta. She covered her mouth and whispered, "Marcus, that's my name. Marcus Hale." She hugged me so tight I could feel her shaking. "I did it," she said. I held her and said, "No, you earned it." That night, we danced barefoot in the kitchen. No music at first. Then I played an old song from our wedding. She laughed when I spun her badly. For a few hours, it felt like nothing had changed. But something had. I just didn't know it yet. Being married to a CEO sounds impressive when people hear it. They imagine money, power, expensive dinners, beautiful homes. And yes, some of that came. We moved into a better house. Vanessa bought a car she had once only pointed at through dealership windows. Her clothes changed. Her phone changed. Her circle changed. Suddenly, we were going to events where people asked what I did with the kind of smile that already decided whether my answer mattered. I didn't mind. Not at first. I had a good job. I worked hard. I was not ashamed of my life. But I started noticing the way Vanessa answered for me. "He's in operations," she'd say quickly. Then she would change the subject. Once, at a fundraiser, a man in a grey suit asked me, "So are you involved in Meridian too?" Before I could answer, Vanessa touched my arm and said, "Marcus prefers a quieter life." Everyone laughed politely. I laughed too. But on the drive home, I said, "You know I can answer questions about myself." She looked out the window and sighed. "I wasn't trying to insult you. I didn't say you were. You're sensitive tonight." That was the first time I remember feeling like we were on opposite sides of something. I let it go. Marriage teaches you to let some things go. The problem is, sometimes you let go of the small things until they pile up high enough to block the person standing in front of you. Vanessa started keeping her phone face down. She started stepping out of the room to take calls. She changed her passcode, which wouldn't have bothered me if she hadn't made a joke about it before I even asked. "CEO security," she said. I smiled, but something in her voice felt rehearsed. Then came the late nights that didn't sound like work. She would come home smelling like expensive restaurants. Sometimes perfume that wasn't hers. Sometimes wine, though she told me she had only been in meetings. I never accused her. Maybe I was afraid of sounding insecure. Maybe I trusted the history more than the present. Maybe I didn't want to become the kind of husband who searched phones and followed cars. So I chose trust. Every time. When she forgot our anniversary dinner, I chose trust. When she cancelled a weekend trip we had planned for months, I chose trust. When she stopped wearing her wedding ring during certain events because, as she said, it doesn't match the image, I chose trust. That one hurt. I remember standing in our bedroom while she fastened diamond earrings in the mirror. "The image?" I asked. She didn't look at me. "You know what I mean." "No, I don't." She finally turned. "Some rooms are complicated, Marcus. People make assumptions. I don't want my personal life to become part of every conversation. I'm your husband, not a scandal." Her face softened for half a second. Then the CEO returned. I didn't mean it like that, but she did. Not fully, not cruelly, but enough. After that, I stopped asking questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. For a while, we became good at looking married. Photos at charity events. Smiles at dinners. Her hand on my arm when cameras were around. At home, silence grew between us like furniture. You learn to move around it. You learn which subjects not to touch. You learn when someone's body is in the room, but their mind is somewhere else. Still, I loved her. That's the part people judge until they live it. Love doesn't disappear the first time someone hurts you. It doesn't pack a bag and leave because dinner got cancelled or a phone got hidden. Love stays. It explains. It excuses. It waits. And I was good at waiting. One Thursday evening, Vanessa came home looking exhausted. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her heels, and sat on the stairs like she couldn't make it any farther. I was in the kitchen washing dishes. When I saw her, I dried my hands and walked over. "Rough day?" She nodded. For once, she didn't pretend. I sat beside her. She leaned against me, just like she used to. "I'm tired, Marcus," she whispered. "Then stop running for one night." She closed her eyes. I don't know how. I wanted to say a lot of things. I wanted to say I missed my wife. I wanted to say I felt like a guest in her life. I wanted to say I didn't know how much longer I could keep loving someone who only came home in pieces. But she looked so tired. So I just held her. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. On the kitchen counter, there was a note. "Board review. Long day. Don't wait up. No heart. No love you. Just information." I stood there reading it longer than I should have. That day at work, I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about the stairs, about the way she leaned into me, about how close she had felt for those few minutes. Maybe we weren't broken. Maybe we were just buried under her life. Maybe she needed someone to remind her who she was before the title, before the office, before everyone started calling her Madam CEO. Around lunch, I walked past a flower shop. There were pink roses in the window. Vanessa's favorite. I stopped. I don't know how long I stood there looking at them. Then I went inside. The woman at the counter asked what the occasion was. I almost said anniversary. It wasn't. I almost said apology. But I didn't know what I was apologizing for. So I said, "I just want to surprise my wife." The woman smiled like that was enough. I bought the roses. Not red. Pink. Soft. Full. beautiful pink roses. The kind Vanessa used to say felt more honest than red ones. Then I walked 2 blocks to a boutique and bought a small pink gift bag with a bracelet inside. Nothing flashy. A simple gold bracelet with a tiny engraved charm. On the back, I had them engrave 3 words. Still your home. It sounded sentimental. Maybe too sentimental. But that was what I wanted her to remember. That no matter how high she climbed, no matter how many rooms applauded her, no matter how many people wanted pieces of her, she still had somewhere she didn't have to perform. She had me. By 4:30, I had made my decision. I would go to Meridian. I had only been there a few times, mostly for public events. Vanessa didn't like surprise visits. She always said her schedule was too unpredictable. But this wasn't about interrupting her. It was about showing up. For once, I didn't call first. I got into my car with the roses on the passenger seat and the small gift bag resting carefully beside them. During the drive, I rehearsed what I would say. Nothing heavy, nothing desperate. Just something simple. I missed you. Or maybe, let's have dinner tonight. Or maybe I wouldn't say anything at all. Maybe I'd just hand her the flowers, and she'd smile, and for a second, we'd be us again. Traffic was terrible, but I didn't mind. I remember feeling nervous in a strange way, like a man going on a first date with his own wife. When I reached Meridian Global Solutions, the sun was beginning to lower behind the glass buildings downtown. The company headquarters looked different from the outside than it did in pictures. Bigger, colder, all glass, steel, and polished stone. The kind of building that made you check your posture before walking in. I parked in the visitor section and sat there for a moment. The roses were bright against my navy suit. The little pink bag looked almost childish in my hand. I laughed at myself. "Come on, Marcus," I whispered. "It's your wife." I stepped out of the car. The lobby doors slid open before I even touched them. Cool air hit my face. The floor shined so clearly I could see the reflection of the flowers. A receptionist looked up from behind a black marble desk. A few employees crossed the lobby with badges swinging from their necks. Everyone looked busy, important, untouchable. I walked toward the front desk with the roses in one hand and the small gift bag in the other. The receptionist smiled at first. Then her eyes moved to the flowers, then to my face, then to something behind me. The smile faded a little. "Good evening," she said. "Can I help you?" "Yes," I said. "I'm here to see Vanessa Hale." She blinked. Not a big reaction, but enough. "Do you have an appointment?" I almost laughed. "I'm her husband." The receptionist didn't laugh. She looked toward the security desk. That was when I saw him. A bald man in a dark suit, black sunglasses and an earpiece, standing near the far end of the counter. He had the stillness of someone trained to notice everything. He walked toward me slowly. Not aggressively. Not politely either. Just controlled. "Sir," he said, "who are you here to see?" I kept my voice calm. "My wife, Vanessa Hale." His face didn't change. Behind his sunglasses, I couldn't see his eyes, but I felt him studying me. Then he looked at the roses, the gift bag, my wedding ring, and finally back at my face. "Sir," he said quietly, "I need you to wait right here." Something in his voice made my hand tighten around the flowers. "Is there a problem?" He didn't answer right away. He touched his earpiece like someone had spoken to him. Then he turned slightly toward the elevators, and for the first time since I walked into that building, I followed his gaze. That was when I saw Vanessa, my wife, standing near the private elevator, wearing a white dress. Her hand resting on another man's chest, and the man was looking at her like he belonged there, like I was the stranger. The security guard stepped closer to me, and in a low voice he said, "Sir, don't move." I didn't move. Not because the guard told me not to, because my body forgot how. Vanessa was standing across the lobby, with another man's hand near her waist, and her hand was still resting against his chest, like it belonged there. For a few seconds, I told myself there had to be an explanation. A client, an investor, a misunderstanding. Then Vanessa saw me. Her face changed, not surprised, afraid. And that scared me more than anything. The man beside her followed her eyes and looked at me. He didn't step away. He didn't look confused. He looked annoyed, like I had interrupted something that was already settled. I looked at the security guard. "What is this?" He lowered his voice. "Sir, I think you should leave." "Leave," I said. "That's my wife." The guard hesitated. Then he said the words that made the whole lobby go silent. "No, sir. That man is listed here as her husband." My fingers tightened around the roses until the stems bent. Vanessa started walking toward me. "Marcus," she said. Hearing my name from her mouth made it worse. I looked at the man behind her. He adjusted his jacket and followed slowly, calm and polished, like he already knew how this would end. Vanessa stopped a few feet away. The roses were between us. The gift bag hung from my hand. For some reason, I hated that most. I hated standing there with a gift for a woman who looked like she had been caught living another life. "Tell me he's wrong," I said. She swallowed. "Marcus, not here." I gave a small laugh, but nothing about it was funny. Not here. Employees were pretending not to watch. The receptionist had her eyes down. The guard stood close enough to step in if I raised my voice. But I didn't raise it. I just looked at my wife. "Tell me he's wrong." Vanessa looked over her shoulder at the man. That one look told me more than any confession could. The man stepped forward. "I think this is a private matter." I looked at him. "Who are you?" He held my stare. "Adrian Cole." He said it like I should know the name. I didn't. Not then. Vanessa touched his arm lightly. "Adrian, please. Please. Not stop. Not go away. Please." Like he had authority in this moment. Like I was the problem they needed to manage. I turned back to the guard. "What did you mean he's listed as her husband?" The guard's jaw tightened. He looked uncomfortable now. "Sir, I only go by the executive access profile." "Say it clearly." Vanessa said, "Marcus." I looked at her. "No. Let him say it." The guard took a breath. "Mr. Cole is listed as Mrs. Hale's spouse for private access, emergency contact, and executive family clearance." The lobby seemed to tilt a little. Spouse, emergency contact, executive family clearance. Those weren't rumors. Those weren't assumptions. Those were records. I looked at Vanessa's left hand. No wedding ring. I had seen that before at events, but this time it felt different. This time, it felt like evidence. I lifted the bouquet slightly. "I came here because I thought we were drifting," I said. "I thought maybe I could fix something." Vanessa's eyes watered, but she didn't reach for me. "I can explain." "Then explain." She looked around the lobby. "Not here." Again. "Not here." Not because it wasn't true, because people were watching. Adrian stepped closer to her. "Vanessa, we should go upstairs." That broke something in me. "We?" He didn't blink. "Yes, we." I stared at him, then at her. "You're going upstairs with him?" Vanessa closed her eyes for half a second. "Marcus, please don't make this worse." I looked down at the roses. A few petals had fallen onto the polished floor, pink against black marble. I thought about the engraving on the bracelet. "Still your home." I almost laughed again. Instead, I placed the bouquet gently on the reception desk. Then I set the small pink gift bag beside it. Vanessa stared at the bag like it hurt to look at. "What is that?" she whispered. "A mistake," I said. Then I turned and walked out. No shouting. No scene. No begging. I heard Vanessa call my name once. Only once. I kept walking. Outside, the evening air felt thick. I made it to my car before my hands started shaking. I sat behind the wheel and stared through the windshield. People walked past on the sidewalk. Cars moved. Life continued. That felt insulting. I wanted the world to stop for 1 minute and acknowledge that mine had just cracked open. But it didn't. My phone buzzed. Vanessa. I watched it ring until it stopped. Then it rang again. Then a message came through. "Please let me explain." Another one. "Come home. We can talk." Then another. "Do not do anything emotional." That one changed everything. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I love you. Do not do anything emotional. Like I was a risk. Like I was a loose wire. Like her first concern was control. I drove home in silence. I don't remember every street. I don't remember parking. I only remember walking into our house and noticing how clean it was. Too clean. A house can feel empty, even when it's full of expensive things. I stood in the living room and looked at the framed photos on the wall. Our wedding. Our first vacation. Her CEO announcement dinner. Me smiling beside her while she held an award. I wondered how many of those smiles had been real. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I answered. For a moment, no one spoke. Then a man's voice said, Mr. Hale. Yes. This is Daniel, the security guard from Meridian. I stood still. How did you get my number? Your wife's emergency file. I didn't say anything. He lowered his voice. I shouldn't be calling you. Then why are you? There was a pause. Because what happened today wasn't right. My chest tightened. What do you know? Not enough, he said. But enough to know you were telling the truth. I sat down slowly. He continued. Your name used to be in her profile. Used to be. When? Until 6 months ago. I closed my eyes. 6 months. That was around the time Vanessa had started traveling more. Around the time she changed her passcode. Around the time she stopped wearing her ring at certain events. Daniel said, Mr. Cole's name replaced yours. Spouse access. Private floor clearance. Executive events. I couldn't speak. Then he added, and there's something else. I opened my eyes. What? Your wife didn't look shocked when she saw you today. I noticed. No, he said. I mean, before you came in, she was warned. My hand tightened around the phone. Warned by who? The receptionist messaged upstairs when you gave your name. I stood up. Why would she warn her that her husband was in the lobby? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, That's exactly what I asked myself. The front door opened. I turned. Vanessa walked in. Still in the white dress. Still without her ring. Her eyes went straight to the phone in my hand. Who are you talking to? She asked. Daniel whispered, Don't tell her it's me. Then the line went dead. Vanessa closed the door quietly behind her. For a second, neither of us spoke. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired that comes from working all day. The kind that comes from carrying a lie for too long. She glanced at my phone. Who were you talking to? I slipped it into my pocket. Does it matter? It does if someone from work is calling you. I couldn't help noticing the way she answered. Not who. Not why. Just someone from work. I looked at her for a long moment. I went to your office because I wanted to surprise my wife. She looked down. I know. No, Vanessa, I don't think you do. She didn't answer. I walked over to the dining table and pulled out one of the chairs. Sit. She looked surprised. I don't want to fight. I'm not asking you to fight. She slowly sat down. I took the chair across from her. For the first time in years, there was nothing between us. No television, no phones, no excuses. Just silence. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning inside me since the lobby. Who is Adrian? She rubbed her forehead. It's complicated. I smiled without humor. Funny. What? I've noticed something. What? The truth is always simple. She looked at me. Lies are the only things that become complicated. Her eyes filled with tears. Marcus. Who is he? She hesitated. He's... She stopped. I leaned forward. I'm giving you one chance. She closed her eyes. He's a business partner. He's a business partner. I stared at her. That's your answer? It's the truth. No. She frowned. It is. I shook my head slowly. A business partner doesn't get listed as your husband. She froze. Only for a second. But I saw it. She hadn't expected me to know that. Who told you that? So it's true. She didn't answer. Who told you? I asked you first. She stood up. You shouldn't have gone there today. I laughed. That one sentence hurt more than anything she'd said all evening. I shouldn't have visited my own wife. You caught everyone off guard. Everyone. Not her. Everyone. I repeated the word in my head. Everyone. There were enough people involved for her to use that word naturally. I stood up too. How many people know? Her face went pale. What? How many people know about this? She crossed her arms. Marcus, you're making assumptions. Am I? You don't understand how executive business works. There it is. What? The CEO talking. I'm trying to explain. No. I pointed toward the front door. You've been explaining for the last 2 hours without answering a single question. She opened her mouth. I raised my hand. No. My turn. I took a slow breath. When did my name disappear from your emergency contact? She stared at me. The color left her face. Who told you that? So it happened. She looked away. Marcus, when? Silence. When? 6 months ago. The room became unbelievably quiet. 6 months. Exactly what Daniel had said. 6 months. I remembered our anniversary. The cancelled vacation. The sudden business trips. Everything seemed to land on the same date. Why? She looked genuinely conflicted. It wasn't supposed to become this. What wasn't? The board. I frowned. The board. She nodded. They wanted stability. I blinked. I don't understand. She took a deep breath. When I became CEO. She stopped again. I could see her choosing every word carefully. Some investors were uncomfortable. Because they thought I looked. She searched for the word. Too ordinary. I almost laughed. Ordinary? They wanted someone with a stronger executive image. I folded my arms. And they believed my marriage didn't fit the image. I stared at her. I honestly thought I had misunderstood. My marriage? They thought... She swallowed. They thought having a husband who worked in operations wasn't... She couldn't finish. I finished it for her. Good enough. She looked down. They never said those exact words. They didn't have to. She nodded once. No. I walked toward the kitchen. I needed water. Not because I was thirsty. Because I suddenly felt like I couldn't breathe. She followed me. It wasn't about you. I turned around. Everything you're describing, I pointed toward myself, is literally about me. She looked like she wanted to argue. Instead, she stayed quiet. You let strangers decide whether I was good enough to stand beside my own wife. They're not strangers. They are to me. They control the company. I thought you controlled the company. She looked away again. It isn't that simple. I leaned against the counter. So Adrian became the solution. She nodded slowly. Publicly. What does that mean? It means... She looked exhausted. He attends executive events. I've seen those events. Yes? You removed your wedding ring. Silence. You introduced another man as your husband. Silence. You erased me. She wiped a tear from her cheek. I never stopped loving you. Those words should have comforted me. Instead, they made me angry. Don't. What? Don't tell me you love me while describing how professionally you replaced me. She covered her face. I was trying to protect everything we'd built. We? Yes. No. I shook my head. You were protecting your career. Her voice cracked. You don't know what they threatened. I looked at her carefully. That was the first sentence all night that sounded completely genuine. Not rehearsed. Not defensive. Afraid. What did they threaten? She opened her mouth. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Adrian. She immediately declined the call. It rang again. She declined it again. A third time. She turned the phone upside down, exactly the way she'd been doing for months. I looked at it, then at her. You should answer. I don't want to. Answer it. He can wait. No. I walked over, picked up her phone, and handed it to her. Put him on speaker. Her breathing became uneven. Marcus. Speaker. For nearly 10 seconds, she didn't move. Finally, she accepted the call. Vanessa, Adrian sounded irritated. Where are you? I'm home. You left without saying anything. I needed to. There was a pause. Then he asked the question that made every hair on my arm stand up. Is he there? He. Not Marcus. Not your husband. Just he. Vanessa looked at me. Yes. Adrian sighed. I told you this would happen eventually. Eventually. Not unexpectedly. Eventually. Meaning, they had planned for this possibility. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Adrian continued. The board meeting is tomorrow morning. Vanessa closed her eyes. I know. You need to keep your head clear. I said I know. And Marcus? Silence. Does he know everything? She whispered. No. Another pause. Then Adrian said something that neither of us expected. Good. I frowned. Because if he finds out who actually made this decision... His voice dropped. None of us are going to survive it. The call disconnected. Vanessa slowly lowered the phone. Neither of us spoke. One sentence kept echoing inside my head. If he finds out who actually made this decision... I looked at Vanessa. Very quietly I asked, who are they talking about? Vanessa looked at me, and for the first time that night, she didn't answer like a CEO. She answered like the woman I had met in that coffee shop years ago. Scared. I can't tell you. I held her gaze. You've been telling me that all night. It's not because I don't want to. Then why? She took a shaky breath. Because once you know, there's no going back. I almost smiled. There hasn't been a way back since I walked into your lobby. She looked down. I know. For nearly a minute, neither of us spoke. Then she quietly said something I never expected. I need you to trust me one last time. I laughed softly. You really picked the wrong day to ask for that. I know. But I'm asking anyway. She reached into her purse and removed a small envelope. No company logo. No writing. Just my name. Marcus. She slid it across the table. Don't open this tonight. I frowned. What is it? If anything happens tomorrow. She stopped herself. Open it. I looked at the envelope, then back at her. What do you mean, if anything happens? She stood. I have to go. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You think we're done talking? No. But tomorrow we'll answer everything. Without another word, she walked upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen until nearly sunrise, staring at the envelope. The next morning, I drove to Meridian, not because Vanessa asked me to, because I needed answers. The company's headquarters looked different in daylight. Television vans were parked outside. Reporters stood behind temporary barriers. Employees gathered in small groups, whispering. Something had happened. I walked toward the entrance. Daniel, the security guard, saw me immediately. This time, he wasn't wearing sunglasses. Mr. Hale, what happened? He looked around before answering. The board meeting started an hour ago. And? They've locked the executive floor. I frowned. Why? He lowered his voice. The regulators arrived. Regulators? Before I could ask another question, 2 black SUVs pulled into the underground entrance. Several people stepped out carrying briefcases. None of them looked like investors. They looked like investigators. Daniel looked at me. You should stay. I'm going upstairs. You won't be allowed. We'll see. Just then, the elevator doors opened. Employees began walking out. No one was talking. Every face looked pale. Then I saw Adrian. His expensive suit was wrinkled. His confidence was gone. 2 investigators walked beside him. He wasn't handcuffed. But he wasn't free either. Our eyes met. For the first time, he looked nervous. I stepped into his path. Adrian. He stopped. Neither investigator interrupted. I asked one question. Were you ever her husband? He closed his eyes. Then he shook his head. No. Then what were you? He looked exhausted. A mistake. One investigator placed a hand on his shoulder. We need to keep moving. As they walked away, Adrian looked back one last time. I never wanted your life, Marcus. Then he disappeared through the lobby doors. I stood there trying to understand what had just happened. Daniel walked beside me. They're calling everyone to the auditorium. For what? The announcement. Hundreds of employees filled the room. Board members sat in the front row. Reporters lined the walls. The atmosphere felt nothing like a normal company meeting. A man introduced himself as lead counsel for Meridian. He adjusted the microphone. This morning, evidence was presented showing that several members of Meridian's executive board created false executive records, approved misleading internal documents, and manipulated governance procedures without proper authorization. The room erupted with whispers. He continued. The purpose was to manufacture an executive image they believed would increase investor confidence. I felt my stomach tighten. The CEO was instructed to present a public spouse for executive branding purposes. Someone behind me whispered, "My God." The attorney continued. While Ms. Vanessa Hale agreed to several of these decisions, today's investigation confirmed that numerous records were created and altered by members of the board without lawful approval. I looked toward the stage. Vanessa walked out. She looked exhausted. No designer confidence. No polished CEO smile. Just Vanessa. She walked to the microphone. I made choices I deeply regret. The room became silent. I told myself I was protecting the company. She swallowed. I convinced myself that if I sacrificed pieces of my personal life, I could fix everything later. She looked directly at me. I was wrong. Her voice trembled. The greatest success of my life was never becoming CEO. She paused. It was marrying a man who loved me before anyone knew my name. Tears filled her eyes. And I betrayed that love. No one moved. No one spoke. I accept responsibility for every decision I made. She removed her executive identification badge, placed it on the podium. I resign as Chief Executive Officer of Meridian Global Solutions. The room exploded with questions from reporters. Camera flashes filled the auditorium. Vanessa stepped away from the microphone. She walked directly toward me. She stopped only a few feet away. I don't expect forgiveness. I nodded slowly. You shouldn't. I just wanted you to hear the truth from me. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I reached into my jacket. I removed the envelope she had given me. I never opened it. She looked surprised. You trusted me. I smiled sadly. No. I just realized. I placed the envelope back into her hands. Some things don't matter anymore. She held it against her chest. I'm sorry. I know. Those were the last words we spoke as husband and wife. Our divorce wasn't dramatic. There were no public fights, no revenge, no courtroom speeches, just two signatures ending a life we had built together. Months later, I heard Vanessa had taken a teaching position at a small business school. No headlines, no interviews, no corner office, just a classroom. Some people called it a fall from grace. I didn't. I called it a second chance. As for me, I sold the house, moved closer to my mother, started a small logistics consulting business with 2 former co-workers. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. One Saturday morning, I stopped by the same coffee shop where Vanessa and I first met. The owner had remodeled the place. Different tables, different paint. The coffee was still terrible. I smiled. As I carried my cup to a window seat, I noticed a young man paying for a woman's coffee because she'd forgotten her wallet. She laughed. He laughed. For a second, I saw 2 younger versions of ourselves. Hopeful, certain, completely unaware of what life would eventually ask of them. I silently wished them something I couldn't wish for my younger self. Not success, not wealth, not power, just the courage to protect the people who love them most. Because careers can be rebuilt, companies can recover, titles eventually disappear. But trust, once you trade it for ambition, sometimes the price is the only person who ever loved you before the world knew your name. Every relationship is built on one foundation that money, success, and status can never replace: trust. This story reminds us that the smallest compromises often lead to the biggest consequences. Vanessa didn't lose her marriage in a single day. It happened through a series of choices, hiding the truth, avoiding difficult conversations, and convincing herself that protecting her career justified sacrificing her honesty. What began as a professional decision slowly became a personal betrayal. Marcus teaches another important lesson. Loyalty is a strength, but loyalty without communication can become blindness. Trusting the person you love is essential, yet healthy relationships also require honesty, transparency, and the courage to ask difficult questions when something feels wrong. Ignoring every warning sign in the name of love doesn't protect a relationship. It often allows problems to grow unnoticed. The story also highlights the danger of defining your identity by your career or social status. Titles, promotions, and public recognition can open doors, but they should never come at the cost of integrity. A successful career means little if achieving it requires abandoning the people who stood beside you before the success arrived. True leadership is measured not only by business results but also by character, humility, and the ability to remain faithful to your values under pressure. Another valuable lesson is that appearances can be deceiving. From the outside, Marcus and Vanessa looked like the perfect couple, attending elegant events and living a successful life. Yet, behind the polished image was a marriage quietly falling apart. This reminds us not to compare our lives to what we see on social media or in public, because we rarely know the private struggles others are facing. Finally, the story shows that healing is possible. Marcus chose dignity